Good afternoon, everybody. We're delighted to be here on this LinkedIn Live, a special LinkedIn Live across the water,
Yeah,
connecting continents.
I know how fun. It's like morning for me, afternoon for you.
Where are you? Actually, Allison is going to be talking to us today about content strategy. And in particular for LinkedIn, we're going to talk about LinkedIn. We're going to talk about what's going on at the moment for us and for others. How to stand out on LinkedIn, but also, what it's like working for yourself as well. We were talking about that earlier before we came on. So, Allison, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I live in Columbus, Ohio. I actually spent 15 years in the corporate world before I decided to put in my 2 weeks notice and then figure out what I was going to do next. So I was in digital marketing, working for a Fortune 100 and did a lot on websites. So worked with IT departments, brand, outside vendors, strategy, creative, understood that whole like user experience of what was needed. And so that gave me a lot of experience leading into what I do now with content strategy as we think about like all digital channels and what we need to be executing on. And a big part of that is LinkedIn content that I do for businesses. So yeah, had that experience in corporate and had two small kids at the time and just knew that as they were getting older, I wanted to be the mom that was like home for the summers. And we were getting to that place of like, what are we going to do? Are we going to hire a nanny or who's going to take care of the kids when I have to be at work, during the day? My mom was a teacher. So I was really blessed to be able to have her like every single summer. And I wanted that opportunity with my kids. And so I started writing online. I wrote on medium.com, like over 400 articles, and just enjoyed the experience of finally like sharing publicly things about self-improvement and early career advice and travel, like the topics, honestly, that I was more interested in, not really in my audience. I wasn't really thinking of my audience at that time. It was just like purely learning how to write and enjoy like doing that online. And then found myself marketing as a SEO writer when I first kind of started out on LinkedIn in 2023, like in January, February 2023. Got my first two clients like within 3 months of posting on the platform and just telling my story and what it is I did for people in terms of writing SEO blog content. And then after that, I started having clients then come to me and say, hey, I see you doing this on LinkedIn. Could you do that for me too? Could you help me figure out what the strategy is? Could you help me, understand what I need to be writing about and what that post should be? And I'm on the platform so much, I just really enjoy it. I find it to be like that one social media outlet where you can learn a lot and actually come away from it feeling more motivated than maybe some others. And so that has that's just kept me in this space. And I, going on 4 years later, I just continue to still enjoy it, meet people like you, and have conversations like this.
Well, this is it. You see, like folks, a few people were saying, how did you end up, on this LinkedIn Live with Allison? I'm like, well, I was watching her for a while, and then I connected because what I do is, and you probably do the same, is we might comment on something similar. I think we did comment on one of Richard van der Bloom's posts, I think once.
Yep, that's
Then
possible.
I loved what you had said, and then I connected, and then we just started talking, and then I just love what you put out on LinkedIn because we're kind of similar in what we say. And this is another thing I want to bring up is, just because someone's in the same kind of space, it doesn't mean they're necessarily competitors, because people buy from people and they might prefer my personality or they might prefer your personality or the way you work. So I always feel like collaboration is key, and that's what we're doing here today.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few different people I feel like that focuses on LinkedIn content for folks that we talk a lot. Like we connect and we ask questions and you're like, hey, are you noticing this on the platform? And it's definitely not that feeling of like, oh, you're gonna, if I work with you, I'm gonna lose clients. It's not like that. Like you really, and I've said this kind of before, like you need to find your peer group of individuals, honestly, that are in the same boat as you, kind of doing some similar things, so you can kind of have those conversations. It's super helpful. I find it to be very, very enjoyable. And just getting to talk to you, Samantha, I learned things that are new about you too. And I think it's just, it feeds into then what I'm doing. And it goes, it's a thing it's good all around. There's nothing bad about it, for sure.
Absolutely. And I think the way you use LinkedIn is similar to me. So for people watching, we want to kind of talk about LinkedIn and give them a bit of value. So like I know what is the main problem or challenge that people come to you with when they approach you about working together?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't think it's a lack of ideas. It's having someone like me come in and kind of help structure, okay, based on your business goals and what you have going on, this is what makes sense to talk about. Because I think, especially like right now, and you've probably noticed this like in the algorithm, it's really not about volume of posts. You do not have to post a lot. You know, for most of my clients, they're fractional leaders, they're mid-sized businesses, and it's not about being a content creator. Okay, it's about actually being on the platform and sharing more about what you're doing, like giving a glimpse into the everyday. A thing I say a lot is look at your calendar. Okay, look at your calendar and what it's telling you in terms of what you're involved in, the projects that you're doing with clients, the events you're attending. Like those are the things, like the real, like in the moment things that people want to hear more about. That's what you need to be talking about. So I'm a big like show your work person when it comes to, hey, what should I be posting on LinkedIn? Well, tell us more about some of the work you're doing, like right now, like in this week, what's going on? Like who are the clients you're working with?
Absolutely. Behind the scenes, you can't beat it. And I remember I was saying that to a client once, and, I was saying, look, you're going to this big event and there's going to be people there that you know. And what I always suggest them to do is get a picture with the person you're meeting or whatever, or get a picture with people that you meet, and then put the pictures up at the end with some of the takeaways of the event. I also encourage them maybe to take a picture of one of the speakers, because I know if I'm speaking at an event, I might not have someone there that's going to take my picture on stage. And I
Yeah.
might be on the stage and I'd love a picture of a photograph of me on stage because I can use that for content. So usually what I do is I encourage people to take a picture of the person on stage, a little bit about what they said, and put it on LinkedIn, but also send them the picture by message, connect with them and say, here, I took this picture when you were on the stage, you might like it. And they're like so happy to get
Yeah,
it.
that's a great tip. I've never like for people that I work with too, we've talked about like doing the pictures at events, but that little extra ad of sending the speaker the picture, it talk about a way to like break the ice for a conversation if you didn't get the opportunity, especially at the event, to talk with that person. That's excellent. I love that.
Yeah, it's just a simple little thing, but even tagging them in your posts, then your takeaways
Mhm.
posts, and who doesn't want to be quoted in a post like something that you said on stage? I mean, it really makes their day, and it just
For
nurtures
sure.
that relationship. And what about? So, do you feel that people are? We got one question actually in your post there about for small businesses. What was that question, and what was the lady that asked that question about how to get clients? Was it as a small
Has
business?
the whole has the whole content strategy changed in 2026 based on the algorithm change in March? So again, I think there have been some things that have changed slightly. One of the biggest ones, and I was just on a call with my group coaching program yesterday, and I said this: we're not in a space anymore on LinkedIn where the pressure should be there to post all the time. In
Mm,
fact, I kind of encourage my clients to let their content breathe a little bit. And what I mean by that is posting on like a Monday, don't post on Tuesday.
yeah.
Like use that day instead to engage more, actually. So as you and I both know, content is the one piece of it, but it's really like the engagement piece that starts to really move in terms of real momentum, I think, for your business. It's the behind the scenes stuff that you're doing where you're talking with individuals, you're having more of the one-on-one dialogue, and then you're also like moving it off the platform to have like a more in-depth conversation where you can talk to more of the details of like what you do and how you can help them, right? So in terms of like the content strategy and what's maybe changed since March, I would absolutely say like now more than ever, like clear positioning is important. So you have to make sure your profile page and your content is stating very, very clearly what it is you do and how you help. as well as like why you versus maybe somebody similar. You gotta put the differentiator out there. So, and you gotta repeat it. I think that's the piece that like people kind of forget. It's like, ooh, I'm gonna have these elements there on my profile page. I'm gonna talk about it once in a post. And then they kind of get lost in the content and they forget to like bring that up again. So I think very clear positioning is super important with how 360 Brew is set up and AI is reading things on the platform and trying to figure out like, what is it that you do? And you got to make that very clear for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know there was a question. I'm just looking at your post here. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. Thank you so much for that. That was in the chat. I highlighted on the screen. So there was a lady that commented in your post with a question. I'm just going through it here.
Oh, about how people
know about how you see LinkedIn evolving to help small businesses and solopreneurs. That's from Stephanie.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That's an excellent question. And I think it really does relate back to the fact of, again, these small business owners, most of them, they're not in this to be content creators, but they know that LinkedIn is the social platform they need to be on to reach new people, to initiate conversations. Like before we had LinkedIn, what did we do? We had to do more in-person events. And while in-person events is still really important, and I always say it's not just about hanging out on the platform all the time. It's truly like also capitalizing on when things are going on around you locally or other events that you become aware of as a result of being LinkedIn, and then meeting those people in person. That just like further builds the relationship. But I really think as much as you can focus on as a small business owner, like sharing your story, talking about why it is you're doing what you're doing, what kind of sets you apart. That's very important to continue to repeat, along the way, as well as, again, giving us a peek behind the scenes. I want to know that if you are a coach of some sort, well, what do those clients look like? I want you to kind of call them out a little bit by title so that I know who you're talking about. What is it that they're doing? Like, why did they come to you to begin with? Like, what was the pain point they were experiencing? Like, what were they going through? There's such and you know this, Samantha, there's such an emotional element to like telling stories through every post, if you can, that brings people in. Like the woman in the red suit. You just posted about that. And I loved that example. And I think you should share that here real quick for anybody who missed it. But it was a very good example of kind of showing what you had gone through and then the story element to it that brought people in to want to understand more. So I want you to share that piece if you would.
Yeah, it was just, it's true. I was, years ago, I was sitting in the airport. I've been partying all night. I was in London in the airport waiting for the 6 a.m. flight. And I remember sitting there and I was like hungover and probably still hadn't sobered up at the time. I'm 17 years sober now, but, at the time, that was my life, And I remember seeing this lady came into the, with her boarding pass, and she was in a red suit and she had her hair done and she had heels and red lipstick, and I was just like, oh my God, look at her. And she looked like a businesswoman, and I was like, why can't I be more like her instead of the way I am now? And it just made me think, and I remember wishing I could be her. And then I remember fast forward a few years, then I was going to a conference in London on the early morning flight and I was wearing a red suit. So I remember I bought that red suit as well. I had it on my vision board, a red suit. It's funny, I had it on my vision board, a red suit. And now everyone knows me through the red suit. But even if I wear a different color, like I'm wearing a different color today, people go, where's the red suit? I'm like, keep wearing the red suit.
It's going to be like your color. That's like, I love that story. I think that is just so, it's just raw. I think you talk about like what you were going through at the time and kind of what you went through to become sober. And there was this woman that you saw that inspired you. And I think it goes back to, I think I said a comment on one of your newsletters about it actually, of like, if we all think hard, I think there's a story each of us have about the woman in the red suit, right? There's a moment in our lives where we have felt really inspired, or it has made just like this huge impression on us, which has then changed the trajectory of like what we're doing. But I love that story. And I think as much as you can tell stories really and be and be open. There's an element of just being open about things that invites people in.
Well, people buy from people. I always say that, right? So people buy from people. And if you like, let's say like there's two hardware stores, right? And Mary is in one hardware store and John is in the other hardware store, and they're on the same street. And you go into Mary's store and she's gossiping with the lady at the counter, and you're looking for help and she's just bitching about somebody, whatever. I'd walk out and I'd go to the other hardware store, and John is there and he greets you when you come in and he helps you find what you want, and he's not gossiping about anybody behind the counter. I know which hardware store I want to go to because people, it's the same store, they sell the same stuff. But if you are not standing out online, it's the same thing. You need to stand out and show exactly what you are the go-to person for. If you don't, like as a small business owner and entrepreneurs, we need to stand out and show that I am the go-to person for X, Y, and Z, so that it's a no-brainer when they're in a boardroom meeting and they say, well, who can we get to do that now? Who specializes in that? And you're the first person that comes into their mind.
It's true. I mean, I just recently, it was last week, I had someone email me asking about, they are at this company, they have a conference coming up in the fall, and they want to bring somebody in to talk about LinkedIn and to help people understand how to use the platform. And the guy was like, oh, and I remembered you were speaking here. And so your name kind of just popped up into my head, but that's what it's about. Like that's what you want to happen when you're not around, right? When you're not in the room. But to achieve that, you do have to have some kind of presence online, and especially on LinkedIn. And again, it's not about, ooh, I got to become this content creator that's posting all the time. Not at all. But you do have to have some minimal presence, on the platform once a week, once every other week, engaging with people. Like that's what allows people to remember you when the time comes and they need someone like you.
Absolutely. And commenting is probably one of the strategies that for people that are afraid to post, let's say, which I know is one that people come to me with, that they have a fear around posting. What will people think? Like I'm bragging. I'm like, no, you're going to share your knowledge and assist others. So commenting assists others. People remember you. If you comment, they will also, others will see your comment. So make it a meaningful comment. Like, don't just say, oh, congratulations or whatever, make a comment that will stand out. And like yours did that day for me. That's how we're on this call, because you did a comment on Richard Vanderbloom's post. And that's how we ended up on this call. So, I mean, this stuff really works, folks. It's when you make people feel noticed or feel special. That's a really nice, powerful thing to do as well.
I agree. Yeah, there was like a mental checklist that I mentioned yesterday in my group coaching program about commenting. And I'm not going to remember all of it, but there's a few elements where it's like first like noting something that the person said in the post. So you're recognizing a statement they made, which is important because like you said, to your point, people want to feel heard. The second is like, what additional item can you add of value? Like, was there something about the post where there's an element that you also know a little bit more about that you can inject, there in your comment? The other thing is also like saying, if you can, and it makes sense, but also kind of showcasing a little bit, well, this is also what I do, in this process or in this experience that I'm talking about, this is what I did. And at that point, you're showing some social proof. But anytime I think you can show kind of like a support to the person who's posting in what you're saying in your comment, and at the same time adding some additional value so that anybody reading that, if it's the person posting or the person coming to that comment section, they're going to go, oh, wow, like that's helpful. I didn't know that, or I can start doing that. It's going to be more well received. And you've probably seen this, like when I look at the data, it floors me sometimes that like 60% of the people coming to me is through my comments, not even my post, So that's why it's such an element that you need to remember to do, not just in like, okay, what do I talk about on my page, but how am I actually like spending time on the platform and in talking to other people and supporting other people and what they're putting out, into the world on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think, people like, look, if you're educating, empowering, entertaining, engaging, so I just feel any of those. But what do you feel holds people back from actually becoming more consistent? Do you think it's time, or what do you think it is?
Yeah, I think, I think when we don't have a plan, it becomes really difficult. Like in general,
Mm.
most of us need a plan. I'm pretty clear with the people I work with when they ask me about this, because we get into the nitty gritty of like, well, what's your process? Like, how do you do it? I have to have some kind of plan for the week ahead. So for me, I try to reserve Fridays a lot of the time to work, in the business. And when I say that, part of that's my content, of working on my content. So Friday, I'm looking back at my calendar. I'm looking at the notes that I made in my Google Doc along the way of what I should be talking about. And I'm writing, my 3 to 4 posts. Mostly, I think it's about 4 these days. There was a period I was posting about 6 times a week. I kind of let things breathe a little bit more with the way that I've seen things shift in March. And that seems to really help in terms of getting more reach on certain posts. So I don't feel the pressure, personally, to be creating all the time. I love to create content, but I just feel as though, hey, there's probably some other things that I should focus more on, like engaging, using that like extra couple days to like just get serious about being in the DMs more, and whatnot. But yeah, I think it's definitely time and just lack of having the plan. So if you, like, my advice always is, for me, I have to know a day or know a time where I'm going to dedicate to like, okay, I'm going to think about this. I'm not going to force myself on the spot the day of when I want to post to come up with something. I want to have this like list of ideas in some posts pretty well ready to go, so that I can execute and then move on to other things, move on to engaging with people. And then, hey, when the time's up, actually move into my paid client work that I need to do too. So yeah, I think it's definitely time and like needing a plan for most people.
And how do you feel about LinkedIn newsletters? How do you find it? I like LinkedIn newsletters because I think it's great if you're creating the first one, all of your followers and connections get a notification. I think it's powerful for reconnecting with your community.
Absolutely. It took me a while to get to LinkedIn newsletters because I started my newsletter, The Content Cup, in like January, February of 2024. So I kind of like gave it a year where I was trying to figure out what am I going to do, and then got this push from a mentor that I was talking about, because I kind of felt like, oh, I need to wait. And he's like, no, just start writing it. So I use Kit. It's a platform that you can use to send out emails. I use that right now. And I waited a long time. I bet I did that for another year before in 2025 started going, I need to start repurposing my regular newsletter as a LinkedIn newsletter too, because that's the awesome part about this. You don't have to actually come up with something brand new. You can use what you're already creating and sending through whatever platform today, and you can put that on LinkedIn. So
Or vice versa,
yeah, if you start on LinkedIn, because the only thing I say about LinkedIn newsletters is you don't own the data. So it does go to your followers that are currently following you. But in the world of like social media platforms and it being rented land, if you will, you don't have that data. So that if LinkedIn disappeared tomorrow, would you be able to reach these people that are already like trying to work with you or read more from you? So I always have something, or I try to. There's a couple I look back on that I did not. I was like, I don't know what was going on that
or our draft emails.
I just was like, whoa, I forgot that. But I try to have like a little place in the LinkedIn newsletter where I mention like, hey, this is an issue that was originally published in the Content Cup on Thursdays at 6:50 Eastern time. If you want to get this earlier, because typically my LinkedIn newsletter goes out on the following Saturday. So I send my regular one on Thursday. then my LinkedIn newsletter goes out on Saturday. But I have it there that if you want to get this earlier, click here to subscribe for free. And then that way I can try to get the email address so that no matter what happens, if it's, if LinkedIn goes away tomorrow, which I don't think it will, but, I have that information that I could still reach these people.
And even, if people don't use LinkedIn as much, it doesn't matter. Look, whatever social media platform where your audience is important. So I'm very aware. You see, I used to be a Twitter expert, so Twitter kind of changed to X, and I had to do a whole pivot and blah. Mm-hmm. So, don't focus just on one and try and get those email addresses. So actually, I was doing mastermind group this morning. My mastermind group, we were talking about lead magnets with Tracy Bedwell. And it was really interesting, like even having those lead magnets. But I think for LinkedIn in general, I think it's the most powerful platform for reaching decision makers. It's the most powerful platform for showing your thought leadership and showing that you are the go-to expert in your
Yeah, I agree. What's your thought on lead magnets, like in general? Because I'll be honest, I don't think I do them well. I need some work for sure. But I know several people that, use them on the platform. And what I notice is they call it out in their banner, and then they have a featured call out that goes right into their lead magnet. Like, have you seen like pretty good conversion like on LinkedIn using lead magnets, or when your clients have used them? I honestly need to dig into it more. I'm just more curious.
Yeah, it depends on the lead magnet. So I have a client, for example, it works really well for her. What she does is she has an ebook. I think the ebooks still work. I think they still work. Yeah, they still work well. Or a video series is another one that she's doing at the moment. And they get the free video first. And then if you want the rest of the series, that's the lead magnet. So, and it's all about communication skills. But I do feel they work. I feel it's having the right one though, because I remember I had two different ones before. One was 5 Twitter tips to stand out or something like that one. And then there was another one, which was, what was the other one? How to create your signature talk. So I was just doing a bit of experimentation, and the how to create your signature talk came out tops, which I thought was interesting. I was like, So, because they were coming to my website for Twitter, but then I realized my clients were actually people who want to speak as well on stages. So it kind of made me think and pivot a little bit there. So it just depends on the lead magnet and who your what your ideal client is looking for. Do they convert into sales? That's the thing from your email. See, we're going into email marketing now, but I find that if I do a LinkedIn Live like this, or if I do an events on LinkedIn, I think aren't used enough either. I use them a lot. And you invite people to the event. And then if they say they're attending, and then you message them afterwards and just say, look, I see you're attending. Just a little reminder, this is going live, or just a little reminder, you need to register in this link to secure your space. I do get sales from that.
Okay. Yeah, I do think, I think I wrote an article about it at one point, the power of the follow-up, and how really there's so many opportunities actually when you're thinking through meeting people in an event. Like, what do? You might get their, LinkedIn contact information, but are you like going home after that and making it a point to reach out like that next week and say, hey, it was nice talking with you, and kind of noting some things that you talked about. It's that small gesture that I've found often does lead into opportunities or collaborations, like this. But it just takes the intentional effort, right?
It's knowing your ideal client, I think, is probably the main one. And the main issue I come across when people come to me is they don't know who that. They're like, everybody's my client. Everybody. Yeah. No.
Right. So you're correct.
Person is like, and that's the number one thing I hear. And what's the number one thing that you hear from people that just makes you go crazy or laugh or just go, here we go?
What makes me laugh when they come to me?
I do. Me anyway. Yeah.
I do think it's interesting, the folks that still want to talk about viral posts. I mean, okay, yes, we all I think it's human nature, and we're kind of trained subconsciously about numbers, and the higher number, the better, the perceived thing is like, it's better. But I'll be honest, like I can remember a video. Do you remember when video was hot on LinkedIn, like into 2024?
Yeah.
I remember a video I posted right before, Thanksgiving break, and maybe the timing was good as well. But it was kind of this message around, at that point, I was pushing more of the SEO side of my business, where I was still writing, SEO copy for websites, which I do still do. I just don't market that because I really, really like the LinkedIn stuff. But I just remember it getting like 100,000 like views, which was insane for me. I've never had anything that big. No way. Nothing even close to that, like since that time. But can I say that I got business from that? I don't remember any pointed conversations going back to that video and saying, I saw that. And the fact that you talked about having patience, like that's usually the key in SEO, like just be patient, like put in the work, write really solid stuff that's got all the elements in it, and be patient. Like nobody had that conversation with me. I mean, could they have seen it and that subconsciously fed into then us chatting later? Maybe, but I didn't hear anything from someone, right?
Yeah.
So the flip side of that is I can remember also doing a post last year where I gave the example of a client that I worked with who I'd met from a speaking event. I talked about those feelings going into it. It's an event I almost didn't do because I had to travel, 3 hours away. And I was like, like it's going to take up my day. Like, is this really worth it? And I wasn't getting paid for it. And I really second guessed going, quite honestly. And I was like, no, just go. This is good experience. I want to do more speaking events. Just go. And I met a person in the audience. Her name's Julie. She saw me. We reached out later together. She reached out to me, and I just told the story of like how all this went down and how we worked together on her LinkedIn transformation of her profile page and what we did with her content. And I showed the before and the after, and I tagged her. I also tagged the photographer who did the imagery for her, which looked excellent. And from that post, I can honestly say I did get like 7 people that were actual high quality leads, I would say, who, DM'd me and said, I saw that you did this for Julie. I'm interested. Can we talk more? And that's one that I can say, hey, that really paid off, because I had the direct conversations from it. That's why I'm such a show your work person, because most of my clients are looking for more clients. And so a big part of that, I think, is showing the work. So yeah, I think just back to your question, what makes me laugh is like people who are still like real giddy over something going viral. Cause I'm kind of like, what does it really do? I don't know. I mean, it's kind of fun at times, but I don't know. I'd rather probably have 2 signed contracts by the end of the week than a viral post.
Yeah, I agree with you. I had I did one of my grandson, his back, like it didn't show his face, but my husband has the bookshelf and all the books are coming out like this and they're all neat. And then every Friday, my grandson comes in and he pushes them back in. Because that's all the video was. 5 million views on Twitter.
Oh my gosh, that's insane! Wow.
Not one sale, not one sign up, not one nothing. Yeah. So I'm like, honestly, and even the LinkedIn post that went viral, I got lots of good quality connection requests. I have to say. Very high quality,
which is a win. I think that's an indicator that, okay, that was worth it.
Yeah, there was about 30, I'd say. I've had some messages back and forth since. So yes, that is but business, like financially business, not yet, but I'm in front of a new audience that didn't know me before. They saw my post, they commented on my post. A few people said they saw my post, but they didn't actually comment. Here's another question. What do you measure return on investment for the content you create, especially for solopreneurs and small business owners? Oh, well.
Yeah. Well, for LinkedIn, I'll tell you what I say to look at, and it's a couple different things. So one is profile views. So I know that you have to pay premium for profile views. From my perspective, it's absolutely worth it if you are trying to really use LinkedIn as a channel. to grow your business, because you immediately see the individual of who is basically virtually raising their hand and saying, I'm interested.
Yeah.
Because they've taken the time to click on your profile and check it out. So profile views to me is an ROI of sorts, because it actually validates, like, is my content reaching the right audience? And you can kind of see over time, like starting out, I had a larger, I think, writing audience because I was talking about, content writing and SEO. So I had a lot of SEO and content writers. Well, that was fine. But the only problem with that is, like, those aren't the people really that are reaching out to me for my services, right? And so with you, like right now, anybody, I think, looking at things, like, they can immediately see from who's viewing their profile, is this my ideal client? And if it's not a lot of my ideal client, then I think that's a flag for maybe I need to change my content strategy to talk more, to these folks in my content. So that's a big one. Do you have one, Samantha, that you kind of look at?
Yeah, profile view. It is the only thing I love about premium is the profile views, but I would strenuously suggest to small business owners in particular, you don't necessarily need premium. You need to really look, like, if you can afford it, yes.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it if you can't afford it. You can still stand out without premium. I've done it for years without premium. It's all about, like the question, what do you measure ROI? I would measure messages, messages that come into me with content, because if people are noticing my content, and comments, I love to see. Actually, the perfect example. Okay, happened this week. I have a client, and she'd done her first kind of proper LinkedIn post. She only started doing my 6-week program. And I said, okay, let's look at the likes and look at the round of applause and look at the, there's different emojis. And one of the ladies, so we went through, I said, let's go through that list. And she said, oh, that lady there, I've been trying to get a meeting with her. And I'm like, okay. So what we did was, I said, go to that lady's profile, ring her bell, the notification bell. And then we went through her posts, and guess what? She's going to be at an event next week. And guess what? My client has booked a ticket to go to the same event. So then I said to her, right, so now you're going to the same event. So the next thing you do now is you message her and say, hey, I'm delighted you put that event up. I'm actually going to go. Will we meet for a coffee when I'm there? And she said yes, and they're meeting next week.
Oh, good. Yeah, great example.
That went from to her, looking at her profile to see what she was up to. So I said, look, go and see what she's up to. How can we support her? How can we comment on her stuff? And so then she saw the event. I said, you should go to that. And she was like, so okay. She just booked the ticket.
Yeah, I mean, because that's what it's about, right? It's like, I think LinkedIn can be the billboard to what's going on, like the events that are happening, and then making more of that connection in person, if you can, and meet up for coffee or go to the event. But yeah, you're right. Inbound messages are a huge thing to look at for ROI, to be like, okay, then my content is converting in a sense, because they're then coming to me and wanting to find out more, or starting the conversation. And then it kind of lands in a place of like, oh, tell me more about what you do.
And new subscribers on my newsletter as well. Sometimes they're not connected to me, so I connect to them and I thank them for subscribing. So that's a good way to open a conversation. And one other thing, another way I got a client was they told me they watched the video in my featured section.
Okay. All right.
The featured section is really important. That's where you want to put the good stuff, like you did, the podcast interview, because he said he watched the whole thing, and that's why he reached out to me.
Well, talking about that, Jeff Young, he is the LinkedIn guru, and he's here in Columbus, Ohio. And I found him again through like posting, and we were having this conversation. But I learned a little trick from him too, like talking about what you said about like the podcast and LinkedIn Lives. You could put them in your featured section. Absolutely. You can also like build out your experience section to include all those things underneath your business. So he gave me an excellent tip. And it really made me look at my experience section and go, oh, I need to build that out, because I want to work with more mid-sized businesses who are ready to outsource their content creation and strategy. but also I want to speak, like I do all these speaking events and I'd love to do more of them, and podcast episodes and LinkedIn lives. And so I thought that was a really valuable tip too, because you can then attach every single one that you do so that people can just look right in there and check out an episode, and they don't have to go searching like through a Google search. You've got it all right there for them.
And they can get a feel for what you're about and what you're like and all of that. And he said he liked what I spoke about. And so it does work.
It does.
So actually, looking at the time, my goodness, we've been going for a while, so I don't think we've been at the moment, but please put a comment in. If you're watching the replay, please do comment and we'll check the comments afterwards. Yeah. But how can people get in touch with you if they want some help, Allison?
Yeah, I mean, the best way really is through LinkedIn. Like I said, I'm either posting or engaging quite a bit. I would say, I hate to admit it, but probably 7 days a week. I'm checking it out at least a couple times because, again, I do like the platform, so it doesn't feel like a thing I have to do. It's a thing that I want to do. So if they want to reach me, just send me a message on LinkedIn.
That's one thing. Another tip I want to give, actually, you said it doesn't feel like it's something I have to do.
Yeah.
And really important, isn't it? Because I said to a client, I said, what do you like?
Yeah.
I like women in engineering. I said, well, let's follow some. Let's start making it interesting for you as well. Like it has to be interesting for you. Start following people, things that you're interested in. Oh, thank you, Neve. Neve said she enjoyed that, ladies.
Thank you.
Go. You're going global now. She's in Ireland.
Oh, very fun. Hey, I'll tell you what, you never know. Like we were talking about that social event that you guys always have in May. Who knows? Maybe I can make a trip over there next year. That would be incredible.
That's what I was saying. Yeah, April. I think the next one is in April. The one coming up is, I'll find out. It's
you'll have to keep me updated.
I'll connect you with Esther. And then there's big marketing meetup up in Belfast as well. And there's loads of things happening. It's just for you, what would be the biggest thing that people could do that are watching this that could help you? Can we help you today?
Well, that's very nice. Just probably to share. I think just to share our conversation and what I do, and reach out. Like if anything, I love the conversations. Like that's where this all started with you and I, and it started with a comment, like you said, on a post, and then we were in the DMs, and then we're like, hey, let's get on a call. And that's where we were able to talk more openly about what's going on and what you're doing, what I'm doing. And so to me, like, I just welcome the conversation. So if you've seen this and you want to connect, I would love it if you'd send me a message and let's talk further about what you have going on and what you're doing.
And you know what? I've never been to Ohio, so maybe we can just do an event in Ohio with the other guy that Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff.
Yeah. Let's just
That'd be fun.
Make an event and we'll just do it.
Oh yeah.
And that's how easy it is, folks, to reach a global audience, start connecting with people in different countries, and just start talking to them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Allison.
That was great.